Well, welcome everyone, and thank you, Christine, for that kind introduction. It's great to be here in Minnesota virtually. And I am Steve Schmidt. I have worked in adult basic ed for 33 years, although I am 25 years old. So this is not a math session, so we can get away with that today. But I have done a lot of different things in adult ed as an instructor, a local program director, and working in professional development for the last number of years. And it is my great honor to be with you today. I do, and I've shared this with Christine and many others, I do think that Minnesota has one of the best, if not the best, PD systems in the country. So it is indeed a great honor to be with you today. And I am so glad to talk about a topic that is near and dear to my heart in student persistence. There is a handout available. My basic philosophy in presenting is that I would rather give you a handout with notes than read through bulleted PowerPoints. And so that's been my presentation philosophy for years. So if you would please grab the handout. I know Christine can help you to get that. So you will have that because I will be referring to different pages and page numbers as we go on through. So thank you in advance for using the handout because we will have a lot of things with that and a great reference to use going forward. So let's go ahead as you're grabbing the handout and getting that. Let's go ahead and we will get started. Please introduce yourself in the chat. And if you've attended a number of sessions over the last few days, you're probably like, oh no, not again. Well, I want to give you a choice for what you could do in the chat. You could respond to one of the two, one of which would be, how are you doing today? And a great response to that would be, I'm doing great. I'm excited that this is the last session. Or, what does student persistence mean to you? And I never assume anything when it comes to adult ed. So when I'm talking about persistence, it just really means students keep on keeping on, or they're attending class on a regular basis and long enough to make progress. So that's what we're talking about student persistence. That's really what we are talking about. And I love the image you see there on your screen about the daffodil or the not the daffodil, the weed growing in the midst of the concrete. You've got to be very tough and very resilient to grow in the midst of concrete or asphalt there. So never underestimate the power of persistence. So thank you in advance as people are putting their responses in the chat. And let's see, welcome, welcome, welcome. Laura, good to see you. And you're hanging, that's good. That's good. I love the honesty from Bertie about tired. I understand, understand. And Melinda, good to see you. Glad that you're here. All right, glad that Christine is interested, feeling pretty good. And Parker's excited. And let's see, Laura has given a good definition of persistence. Thank you for that. And we have some folks across the border over from Missouri. Okay, wonderful, wonderful. Well, thank you for all who have responded so far and will continue to do so. I will be using the chat throughout this. And I always find for me when I'm attending a webinar session that I get far more out of it when I'm active in the chat. I'm less likely to get distracted and I'm more likely to attend and say some good things. So thank you in advance for your chat participation throughout today. I'm very, very thrilled to see that. All right. Derek is here. Okay. And he's doing well. And he's TGIFing. Very good. Very good, Julie. Okay. All right. Good to see you. And Teresa. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Okay. Well, thank you all for those good responses inside the chat. What are we doing today? Well, our objectives are simple and few, and we're going to talk about first why persistence is so important. We're going to also look at why evidence-based strategies, or you're going to be able to explain some evidence-based strategies that enhance student persistence. And I hope that you come away with being able to apply some persistence strategies that will help your students succeed. And I do also hope that you will share persistent strategies that you are doing with your learners that help them to succeed as well. So thank you in advance for sharing those as we talk about different things today. Persistence does matter. And let me illustrate that, please. I was sitting in my office one day when I worked at Appalachian State University a few years ago, and I went into my office, opened up my email, and this part of what you see on the screen was this email that came in from a former student. I have no idea how she tracked me down, but she did. And part of the email said this. Hello, I'm not sure if you remember me, but I wanted to say thank you. I was a high school dropout in 1994, and I went to the adult high school program at COA. That was College of the Albemarle, the community college where I worked for 18 years in adult ed. She said, then I stopped coming, working, new mom, marriage, and a lot to handle for someone without an education. You would call me or send me postcards. And for those younger folks here, a postcard is a little looks like a little piece of cardstock that was just a few inches by a few inches that you could send out to people via snail mail, put a stamp on it, and it had cheaper postage than letters, which fit in with our budget at the community college. So we'd send her postcards. I'd come back for a while, then quit again. And that's the definition of stopping out. Our learners will stop coming for a while, come back in, stop out. Same old cycle for years. You never gave up on me for some reason. You kept hounding me. Well, I'm so glad you did. I finished. I graduated from COA. So she finished her high school equivalency or adult high school diploma. She got her associate's degree at the community college. Then she went to Elizabeth City State, which is a 4-year college, which was in that community in Elizabeth City, North Carolina. And she graduated summa cum laude, which is awesome. I was closer to graduating a thank you laude than summa, to be sure. And she said, I am now beginning my 7th year of teaching special education. It's been life changing for me and my family. And I just wanted to say thank you for never giving up on me when so many did. You made a difference. You make a difference. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And first, I can't take credit for her success because this was a team effort. We made persistence a priority in our program. And so it was far from just me that was trying to keep up with her over the years and encourage her to come back. But this always brings me back to why I do adult ed, because what we do matters and what we do can be life changing. She sent this some years ago, and I last checked on her, probably a year or two ago, and she was still teaching special education in the Camden County schools. So it was, an awesome life-changing thing for her. And now she is returning the favor, teaching special education in the public schools in a neighboring county. So it is just amazing. This can be all of our students can persist, can achieve, can be successful. It's not always easy, and there are stop outs along the way, but they can be successful, absolutely. So let's just talk briefly about why persistence matters. I don't think this is at all rocket science, but take a guess, please, in the chat. How many instructional hours do you think it takes to achieve a 1 grade level equivalent gain just in reading? If we had a student coming in and they were roughly at grade level equivalent 5, which we measured on one of our entry tests like the TABE, the CASAS, or GAIN, or BEST, or whatever you're using, how many instructional hours would it take if we then did a post test and that showed that they gained 1 grade level equivalent or GLE? How many hours do you think that takes? So please take a guess. Please take a guess. Doesn't matter if you're right or wrong. We're not interested in right or wrong. We're just interested in the guess. Okay, some interesting comments here with some critique of the feds, which I won't respond to. Okay, let's see here. So I'm seeing different responses from 40 to 60 to Barbara's guess saying 100. And Cindy's guessing 2 hours. She's a great teacher. Let's see. Carla Parker's doing 80. Trudy's doing 120. Becky says the state says 40. I don't know if the state necessarily says, the state might be saying retest after 40. Let's see. 100, 120, 160, 40. Getting some good guesses. Thank you to everyone who guessed. Valerie's a great teacher because she can do it in 7 hours. Very impressive, Valerie. Very impressive. Well, what research says is this. It takes 100 hours of instruction for a student to achieve a one grade level equivalent. And we're just talking about reading here. So if you were close to that, take your hand, give yourself a pat on the back, and accept my thumbs up of well done. But again, we're here to learn. It doesn't matter whether we got this right or wrong. So it does matter if students are attending classes or they're doing something. They could be doing some things also at home, that could help to get that 100 hours of instruction as well. But it does matter, and it's very students have so much going on in their lives as parents, as workers, as community members. It's hard for them to attend 100 hours a year, and actually, research shows that on average, students attend less than 100 hours a year in our classes. So persistence is extremely, extremely important in order to achieve goals. And give yourself some grace too. If you do test a student according to the TABE, the CASA's post-test guidelines, and students don't show a huge gain, it may just be they haven't had enough time in class. So give yourself some grace. And I do think you do, of course, whatever your program tells you to do in terms of retesting students, but don't expect miracles if you're retesting your learners after 40 hours and expect you're going to see huge jumps because it does take time. It definitely does take time. So, this research about the 100 hours of instruction is an oldie but goldie. John Cummings and his team at Harvard said researchers have identified approximately 100 hours of instruction as the minimum needed by adults to achieve an increase of one grade level equivalent on a standardized test of reading comprehension. So that is where the research comes from this. See, these tests are, yeah. I'm seeing some comments about the testing. And certainly depending on the teacher, depending on the student. And this again is what the research says. So anyways, interesting to think about. Interesting to think about. Let's talk about mindset. And I'm going to talk about mindset in two different ways. The first, let's talk about mindset in terms of our attitude or our mindset toward our students as adult educators, and then we're going to look at it from another perspective. Let's do our perspective first. We're going to do a waterfall chat, and what that means is we'll all put our response in at the same time. You can go ahead and type it in, but don't please hit enter until I say so we can all do this at the same time. What I would love for you to consider is just think about one word that you would use to describe your learners in terms of how you think about your learners. What if you had to describe your learners in one word, what would you say? And that's the word that I would say, please and thank you to put in the chat. Don't hit enter yet. Just go ahead and have it poised and ready to go. And then in a minute, we'll all put our words in at once. So what did he say to do? He said, put in one word that you would use to describe your learners, please and thank you. But don't hit enter yet. And I'll give you a little thinking time. So don't put the word in yet. We're all going to do it at the same time, and we're going to waterfall it. Oh, no apologies necessary. No apologies necessary. Okay. Give another 10 seconds here in case we're trying to think of that perfect word here to describe our learners. Okay. If you would, please go ahead and hit your enter key. Let's do the waterfall. Enthusiastic, determined, motivated, persistent, determined. Okay. We did well with the waterfall. Brave, motivated, resilient, hopeful, experienced. Focus says Matt. Let's see. Good stuff. Superheroes. Wow. Wanting. That's an interesting word from Nancy. Motivated says Christine and Elizabeth. Okay. Determined says Beth. Thank you all who put this in. Why did we do this? Well, I think words are critical and words are important and words signal relationship. If I could direct your attention to the first page of the handout, I would love for you to look at toward the bottom of the page under the goals there. I'm a fan of a gentleman that I attended the Kellogg Institute with a number of years ago. His name is Leonard Geddes, and he does a lot of consulting work, especially in with community colleges and with other institutions of higher education. Leonard is an amazing story. He grew up in a crack house in a small town in North Carolina, and he is incredibly successful. And he's a thought leader in community college and university settings. And he talks about what the nouns matter. So I'm just going to read a little bit of what we see on the first page of the handout. So Leonard says words signal relationship. The nouns we choose to describe others matter because they define the kind of relationship we believe we're in. You act differently toward a colleague than a coworker, a friend than a family member, a spouse than a roommate. Language just doesn't reflect reality, it shapes it. Try introducing your spouse as a friend at a public event and see how well that lands. The same principle applies in education. What we call our student conveys the type of relationship between us. I want to stop there. I was so thrilled to see so many positive nouns that were used or positive adjectives that were used to describe our learners. And that's showing that we do have that asset based view of our learners. He goes on to say, and I'm just going to paraphrase that, there's been different fads and phases in education where we are encouraged to look at our learners as consumers and that type of thing. Leonard says stakeholders is a great way to really think about our learners because they have a stake, of course, in their future, and they have a stake in your program because these students will one day be the successful alumni that you could call on to come and speak to your class to motivate them to say, hey, I was sitting where you're sitting 2 years ago, 3 years ago, and now I am doing X, Y, Z. And he makes the point in that second to last paragraph on page one. When we view students as stakeholders, we begin to serve them differently. We design tools and systems that support their long-term growth because we want to have that adult learner, continue their education. They want to have them continue to have a relationship with us. We provide data, insights, and solutions that not only reflect the demographics of their past, but also help elevate them toward a better future. We don't just track performance, we empower lifelong learning. And they in turn see us differently, not just as us providing a service, but see us as partners. So I love that. And I think our mindset toward our learners needs to be one that has that positive thought to see our students as stakeholders, to see our students as partners, because things spill over. Our attitude toward our learners, we might try to keep it inside, but it is going to spill over. And if we don't have that attitude toward them as partners, as stakeholders, as if we see them as like a problem to be fixed, they will catch that. We may never say that, but in our attitude and our dealings toward them, that will spill over into that relationship. So those words that we use to describe our learners are very, very important. Let's see here. Oh, thank you. Get some love from Valerie. Agrees. Okay. Very good. Very good. Okay. So something to think about. Definitely something to think about and reflect about. Really think about how do you actually view your learners? And I know for me, when I started in adult ed, I was viewing learners as a problem to be fixed, and that was a very limiting. I didn't realize it at the time, but that was very limiting both for them and for me. And I think we can certainly do better than what I was doing. Let's look at the second part of mindset. And if you have any other thoughts about how you view your students, please put those in the chat. So let's think about this question. How would let's say this happened to you and you were repeatedly told over time, you're dumb, you're stupid, you're never going to amount to anything. How would that affect your mindset? If you've been told that since the time you were a little kid, you're dumb, you're stupid, you're never going to amount to anything. What impact would that have on your mindset? Brief thought in the chat, please. Let's see. Barbara says, I would just give up. Okay. Derek's discouraged. Carlo mentions that you believe it. You start to internalize that thought. Jennifer says it's going to create a negative impact. And Becky says, I would either believe it or it might motivate me to prove it wrong. And that's certainly something. And let's see, Starlin says, I'm going to prove them wrong, gosh darn it. Okay. Elizabeth, I believe it and lose hope. So this is a situation, and you know as well as me, we deal with students who have been in this situation. And some do take it like I'm going to prove them wrong, but some it takes them a while to get over this mindset. And there is an academic mindset that our learners bring in about how capable they think they are with learning. I love this quote from Jose Vilson, and I lived this out in my work for many years as an instructor in adult ed. Jose says, most of my work as a math teacher isn't even math. It's helping students believe that they can do math. We don't talk about that enough. And I think that is so true. I worked with students over a period of years, and it was amazing. The pre positive mindset belief student and the post positive mindset belief was a totally different student. Sometimes that took a year or more for learners to develop that. But once they did, once they believed that they could do it, it was a whole different ball game. Mindset shapes so many facets of our life. I was listening to a Planet Money podcast a few weeks ago, and they were talking about workers who worked in manufacturing, worked in low skilled manufacturing, and they lost their jobs. What happened to them? And this, we lived this in the area of North Carolina where I live, which has a lot of old furniture plants and textile mills. And what they found was that for many of these factory workers who had lost these low skill manufacturing jobs, is they never retrained. They couldn't see themselves as anything else. And so when they got laid off from the furniture plant, they thought, well, I'm just gonna have to find another work in a factory somewhere else. And they did, typically taking a lower paying job, but they couldn't see their work mindset as anything different. So they looked for the same type of jobs. So our students are facing all these things with their mindset as we come through. If you'll join me, please, on page 2 of the handout, there is much that we can do to help our students to build a positive mindset, or as the research calls, a growth mindset. This is nothing new under the sun. Dr. Carol Dweck has been doing a lot of research with mindset over the years, and basically, is the mindset a growth mindset is the belief that we can do and get better at things through practice and effort, whereas a fixed mindset says you got it or you don't. You're a math person or you're not. So we can do some things to help our students build that growth mindset. One of those things is that we can explicitly teach the growth mindset. The handout you have toward the very top of page 2 has a link to a teaching your students malleable intelligence handout. It is a 5 or 6 page handout that you could use, pick and choose, that shows how the brain learns and exhibits and demonstrates very different facets with the growth mindset, including, as you can see on the screen, it talks about London cabbies who have to pass something called, to be certified as a cab driver to drive a black cab, they have to pass the knowledge, which is an incredible test where they have to be able to pick out the best route to go from one place to another in central London that takes several years to prepare for. But they found that people who passed the knowledge, their brains were bigger because they had gone through that effort in order to learn the landmarks. The gentleman you see on the screen toward the right passed the knowledge at age 72. I heard so many times over the years from older students, oh, I'm too old to learn. Not true. Our brains are flexible and malleable at any age, and we certainly can learn. And take it from Peter, who passed the knowledge at age 72. So that's one way, explicitly teach about the growth mindset. And I would love it if you would in the chat how you teach your learners growth mindset. Please free to add that as any time as we're going through this section. This is something I learned fairly recently. And there are times when we need to give some tough feedback to our learners. And there is a good way to do that, and there's a not so good way to do that. Yeager and all, back some years ago, talked about a good way to give critical feedback. And that's not saying to the student you're dumb or stupid. That's saying, okay, for this writing sample, we could phrase things like this, and doing some teaching with writing or with something else. So if we have to give some tough feedback, saying I am giving you this feedback because I believe in you made a huge difference. Students who heard this feedback phrased in that way, I'm giving you this feedback because I believe in you, performed much, much better and persisted in their programs than students who were just given the critical feedback. And it was especially effective for African American students who sometimes regard instructors with some distrust based on previous bad experiences. So this is a an effective phrase that can be said, backed up by some extensive research. It's called wise feedback, and Yeager et al. And some other folks have done some work with wise feedback over time. But that's a great way of giving tough feedback sometimes to learners, but in a way that they will receive it better. Let's see what's going on in the chat. I'm seeing several other things here. Let's see. Oh, and good comment about we discuss how getting things wrong helps us learn for the next time. I point out, the normalization of making mistakes. That's good. That's a great thing because we want students to take chances in the classroom. Awesome. Let's see. Some other things we can do to develop the growth mindset. We're still on page 2. Schedule some conferences. These don't have to be a formal sit down type deal. This can be something we do for a few minutes after class or before class where we show learners their progress. If we've got a portfolio of work that they've done, and we can show them some things they did when they first came to class versus some things they did later, whether that portfolio is an old fashioned folder or a Google Drive, whatever. That is huge because a lot of times it is so hard for students to see their own progress, and they think they're just basically in the same part, the same situation they were a month ago or 6 months ago. But when we can show them, here's how you were writing when you come in, look at the difference now, what you're doing, and it's so you're writing so much more effectively and so much more clearly. And you look at what you're doing in math now, you're able to solve these difficult problems in algebra where you couldn't before. So showing students that and then saying, I really believe you're even capable of more. And I'm fully confident you're going to achieve your goal. All those things can help with student persistence. I love video inspiration as well. You'll find on page 9 of your handout several inspirational videos. I'd encourage you to Google adult education success stories in YouTube. So I guess you're not Googling it, you're YouTubing it, but YouTube in the search adult education success stories, and that they show different programs from around the country. There's a number from Indiana, there's a number from Tennessee, some other states about adult education success stories. The young lady that's pictured there worked at Smuckers. I love to say Smuckers, and she was a great success story from some tough situations that she was in earlier in her life. But these really help students to see other people have been in this boat. I can achieve. They did it. I can do it too, and that really helps the mindset from I can't to I can. So let's do a minute of self reflection. We haven't really gone in depth with the growth mindset, but we've talked about it a little bit. And take a minute and evaluate your own teaching situation, whether you're an instructor or program leader in other capacity. Think about, are your students taught that their brains are like muscles that can grow? Are mistakes, and I love this little phrase, expected, respected, inspected, and corrected? Are students praised for effort instead of intelligence? Are students encouraged to take on challenges? And do students see feedback as a way to help them grow and learn? So just take a minute and reflect. Are these things true of your teaching situation? And you will find all of these questions on the bottom of page 2. And this again, something you can reflect on over time, look back and think, is this really true of my classroom? So let's do this, please, in the chat. If you haven't already, what do you do to help students believe in themselves? And we'll take any questions or comments. You are welcome to unmute as well. If you'd like to speak orally, you can do that. Um, any questions, comments about what you do in the classroom that helps build students' belief in themselves to establish that growth mindset, please? Love what Laura said earlier. Mistakes and failures are part of that journey to getting better. Beautiful, beautiful. Let's see, and let's see. There's mention of classrooms a safe place to learn and practice. Yeah, the world can indeed be cruel. We've certainly seen a lot of evidence of that over the past few months and years. Good. I love that. I love that. Thank you, Trudy. Let's see. And Christy mentions honesty. We can be kind, but remember things like I'm here to walk every step through you. Good, 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 good. Celebrate the wins. Yeah. The wins can be, you came to class 3 times this week. That's a win. That's a win. Yeah. Encouraging, congratulate on starting. Yeah, I love what you said about starting this process, Laura, because that's a lot of times that first time in the door is the hardest part. And it can be all downhill from there if they have a good positive experience that first time. Good for Elizabeth for normalizing mistakes. And partnering can really, really help in a lot of ways with not only with students teaching each other, but the students bond together, which is another good benefit. Yeah, not saying this is easy. That's again being honest with our learners, but agreeing it's being hard. And oh, I love it. I love it about being honest that you don't like math because I think Natalie very well said. Sometimes students believe that we've just like beamed down from the teacher planet and we have all the answers, and we struggle with math too. That's for sure. Thank you about establishing career goals. Making fun of myself. Yes. I like that. Good, 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 good. Keeping us humble, laughing at mistakes, not laughing at our own mistakes, not laughing at their mistakes. Good stuff. Good stuff. Yeah, and I'm glad to see a common theme of honesty among we as instructors to be honest with our own mistakes, celebrate those small wins. Excellent. Yeah, we are all wired differently and have those unique strengths. Well said, Marissa. So you give my students more tangible ways to show their progress. Good, good, Elizabeth. Yeah, Valerie talks about vulnerability. We are all learning. See, a picture's included. I can't really see it well, but it looks like there's some motivational content there. Good stuff. Evidence of growth. Agree that it's hard, but it's possible. Yeah, so glad you're here. That's simple to say. And huge for learners. And we see a common theme about celebrating success. Thank you, everyone, for the beautiful comments in the chat. So eloquently said. So eloquently said. If you think of any more as we go on through, bring that in. And I wanted to lead with this because I really think it is so, so important. I've used the phrase before, winning the battle for the heart. Once we win the battle for the heart, the mind will follow. But until we win the battle for the heart, for the belief, the mind is in shaky ground, and whatever it takes to win that battle for the heart is important. And we've got so many good suggestions here about how to make that happen. Thank you. Okay, let's shift gears a bit. I was a big fan of Grant Wiggins, who is an educational thought leader who had a wonderful blog, and he sadly passed unexpectedly a few years ago. His daughter, Alexis, is also in education, and she's in K-12 learning. But she was working to become an instructional specialist. And so they had her shadow high school students for several days. So she went to all their classes. If they took a test, she took a test. They listened to a lecture, she listened to the lecture. She had a different student every day, and she followed them along for classes for 3 days in a row. And she wrote about her experience later. And Cindy was one of her 10th graders that she shadowed for one of the days. And Alexis said, I asked my 10th grade host, Cindy, if she felt like she made important contributions to class, or if, when she was absent, the class missed out on the benefit of her knowledge or contributions. And she laughed and said, no. So Cindy, in this, I don't have no idea what high school this was, where it was, but Cindy saw herself as totally unimportant in the classroom environment. So apparently, in this classroom, it was all teacher directed, and it didn't matter who was there or not. They were going to teach the content, and it didn't matter where the students were in class or not. But I thought it was kind of sad too that she laughed and said no, that it didn't matter at all whether I was in class. And we want it to matter whether our students are in class or not. So we're going to talk a little bit about community. If you are of a certain age, you may remember Cheers, which was a very popular TV show back in the 1980s and early 1990s. When we talk about community and work on a definition, we'd say it's a feeling of fellowship with others as a result of sharing common attitudes, interests, and goals. And in the TV program, they had a varied cast of characters. A very young Woody Harrelson played a Midwestern farm boy who'd come to the big city of Boston to seek his fortune. They had Dr. Fraser Crane before his series spinned off, a successful psychiatrist with many issues. Norm, an accountant with a interesting relationship with his wife. Diane Chambers, who was very well educated in one class short of a master's degree in 32 different areas. But anyway, this cast of characters came together and formed a community around this bar. And they had a theme song, which I promise I will not sing. It did say, sometimes you want to go where everybody knows your name and they're always glad you came. You want to be where you can see. Our troubles are all the same. You want to be where everybody knows your name. And that is a great goal for our adult education programs and our adult education classes. And you're welcome for me not singing that because you wouldn't appreciate it. So, what can we do to develop community in the classroom? And please, 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 please chat what you're doing. When I was a program administrator during those years, and man, give your leader a hug. It's a hard job. No one knows until you've done it. But I had to do a class visit fairly often, and I remember going to Kathy G's. I'll respect her privacy, who taught for us in Dare County, which is a coastal county at the beach, and she taught English as a second language classes. Every time I went to Kathy's class, the class was packed. And it was interesting. I remember being there vividly to this day, and this was probably like 2007 or 2008. I remember vividly walking in and just sitting in the back. And Kathy taught for a while. Students were talking, practicing what they'd learned, and doing some various things. And then she stopped, and people went up and they got some food or got a drink, and they were back and still talking. And then Kathy was kind of going around the table, and she said, "Where's Maria?" And Maria wasn't there, so someone grabbed their phone and texted Maria. But Maria, where are you? And they would get a response back. Well, Maria had to pick up her child today and she couldn't come in. And they're like, where is Alejandro? Oh, Alejandro's not, that somebody would text Alejandro and they'd find out where Alejandro was and he wasn't there. But each student was important and they noticed when they missed, and these other learners had gotten their contact information and were contacting them when they weren't there. And her class was always, as an administrator, I was probably more concerned about the contact hours, but that class had huge contact hours because it was a community and it was awesome. One way to develop community is if you feed them, they will come. Barbara Bonham taught at Appalachian State University, and she was one of my advisors in a graduate program. And I pulled up Horsicle, which is where students can rate their teachers, their professors, and notice the comments here. She's super nice and helpful. I also really appreciate the food. Barbara, before every class, would lay out on a table a spread of food. This could be like crackers and cheese. It wasn't anything elaborate, although she did cook some cool stuff. It was like crock pot kind of stuff and other things. And she had snacky kind of foods, Triscuits and what have you. But before every class, she had those, and we'd get together and we'd talk and we'd eat very informally. And she said, she truly cares about her learners and brought food to every class. So I really got to know people in that program because of those informal times where we would have food at the beginning of each class. So the Chandra Kidd is an instructor in Florida, and I happened to present at the Florida ACE conference in last fall, and she is an amazing instructor. I want to play this video, and I did enable the sound, so hopefully it will play, but let me know if it doesn't. This video shows how she develops community inside her class. She's won Florida Instructor of the Year multiple times. She's a dynamo, action-packed energy. She's amazing. Let's see how she does this. Can we hear? Can we hear? Oops, I shouldn't have done that.
Yeah.
Could we hear okay? Okay. We'll go ahead and stop it there. I wish I had about 1/10 of Chandra's energy. She is absolutely amazing. But you can see they had a nice buffet spread there as part of their class, and she's developed partnerships with various entities in the communities like Wawa, which is a gas station convenience store, and Aldi, and which is I don't know if you have those in Minnesota or not. They're all over the country, but they're a German-based grocery store that's known for their discount foods. So this is bringing the students together. And I love that quote that she said at the end, where she said, feeding people nourishes the body, showing love nourishes the soul, but education feeds the mind, nurtures the heart, and sustains the future. So, oh, how beautifully said. How definitely beautifully said. But I was so impressed with what I saw her do. I work as the professional development coordinator for COABE, and we're going to have her do a webinar in a few weeks. I forget off the top of my head what day, but it is, well worth the time, the hour it will take to see what Chandra does. If you Google COABE PD webinars, you'll find the schedule. And I know she's on, I want to say for either later February or March. I don't recall off the top of my head, but she is dynamite in, her class. No problems with retention there. It's incredible. So, do we have to do a big buffet spread? And the answer is no. It could be a lot more simple than that. If we could just have, some drinks there. This, what you see on the screen is a screenshot. I get the Lincoln, Nebraska literacy newsletter, and they're an incredible program as well. But here they're showing students from a high beginner ESOL class at a local church. They come from different countries and culture, but they share the same challenges as they're trying to build a new life in a new community. And so you see them there drinking, looks like tea, I would say, or perhaps some coffee in there or some water, just enjoying time either before, during, or after class. I've heard of also instructors who will take coffee cups. They'll go down to the dollar store and buy a coffee cup. Let's say in the dollar store where everything used to cost $1, that costs more. But they'll take a Sharpie marker and write the names of their students on the cup. So the student not only comes in and is part of the community, they've got their own cup, and that cup's got their name on it, and they will use it, they'll leave it there and use it every day during class. And so that shows ownership, belonging. I'm there with my peers, and that can go a long way when we've got a coffee cup with my name on it. Everybody knows my name, and they're always glad I came. Other ways we can do community is jobs in the classroom. Join me, please, on page 6. This is something discovered a few years ago, and I've adopted in teaching situations that I've had more recently. What you see on the screen is a picture of a class that I taught back this was about a year and a half ago. I taught this class overseas, and I was teaching conversational English to some instructors at a university in Kurdistan, which is in northern Iraq. And I had several of the students do jobs in the class in order to help me out because I desperately needed a lot of help. The yellow arrow points to the person in front of me. I'll call her Dr. N, who was my cultural liaison. She would help me to, if what I was saying made sense to the learners, she would tell me they understand, you can move on, or she would translate if something that I said was a bit murky. And she was my right arm and my left arm, and I never would have had a good of experience if I didn't have Dr. N there to help me out. But I was there in August, and it was about 110 degrees in the shade. So we had the logistics engineer who would go into the classroom and make sure the AC was on and blowing correctly so we wouldn't all die of heat stroke there in the classroom. And had somebody that would go in and make sure the whiteboard was set up, or not the whiteboard. I actually had a smart board in that class. They'd make sure the smart board was up and working, and others would monitor groups, but gave a lot of classroom jobs, and it was able to extend what I could do as a teacher, but also they really felt part of it. They took pride in their work, and they felt part of the community when they had a job. And there's a lot of different jobs that we can do. So we see some examples. I first saw this in an ESOL context, but this can be done in any context. A greeter, they greet new students, they welcome them. That first day is so important in the classroom. If we can get here on that first day to welcome and greet them and show them the ropes and introduce them to other people. Whoa, that is huge. An athletic trainer who can, during the course of time, get people to stand up and stretch or what have you. We've got a celebration coordinator. Several folks are talking about celebrations in the classroom. If it's an online class, a chat moderator, a historian, they can talk about an event that happened 10 years ago or 100 years ago. Motivational speaker to keep people going. It's endless. Logistics engineer to pass things out, make sure students have what they need. So classroom jobs are huge, not only to help us as teachers to take some of the load off, but to make people feel part of things. When they've got a job, they've got a role, they've got buy-in, they're there, and they're there for the long term. Life may still create some obstacles, but you've got an in now. When they've got a classroom job, they're much more likely to come. So love that, love that, love that. Also, I love this old quote: people support what they help create, or I've heard it as no one argues with what they help create. Focus groups are great. And I've got a little part on focus groups on the top of page 3. I think our learners are valuable resources, and we do not always take them seriously, if we're going to be really honest, with their opinions. But we should. They can tell us some things we really need to hear about our programs. I'm thinking about Seeds of Literacy, which is a literacy organization in Cleveland, Ohio. They really do a great job with focus groups. They were wondering why they weren't attracting certain students to some of their classes, and they convened focus groups. And the students told them, your marketing materials are not effective. They probably may have used other words. I don't see anyone in this flyer that looks like me, and I want to see people that look like me to make me feel that I can do this thing that you're trying to get us to sign up for. And so convening focus groups are great. If you're a program leader in whatever fashion, we can bring some students together. And there is a link there about how to conduct focus groups. This is not rocket science. The hard part of any focus group is just getting learners comfortable enough to share what they really think. And that is the tricky part, to get learners to share what they really think. And so that takes some trust building, that can take some time. But if we don't talk to our learners and get their opinion on what's going on in our program, what's going on in our class, and they may tell us things we don't want to hear, but we need to hear them. We desperately need to hear them. So focus groups can really be a help of that. And if you've used focus groups, talk about that, please, in the chat. Um, One other thing along those veins with community setting is getting to know our learners, or as I'm saying here, staying curious about our learners. Our learners are fascinating. Some of the stories that I've heard from learners over the years is amazing, in the lives they've led and the things they've done and how they've coped. And it's absolutely incredible. So there are, on page 4, some questions to help us stay curious about our learners, and some that are easy, and then when we've developed a relationship, we might could ask some of the tougher, more challenging, deeper questions there. So good stuff for developing relationships with our learners. One other thing that's on page 3 of the handout, and this is really complicated, trying to get feedback, so I'm going to take it slow. Okay, we'll give us a minute to pause here. Take a deep breath. So, how can we tell if what we're providing to our learners, the instruction we're providing to our learners, is effective? Well, okay, here we go. Going to take it real slow. We can ask them, what can I do to help you learn more? Or is what we're doing here in class effective? Asking just a couple basic questions and letting students know that you sincerely do value their opinion, and not just tell me what I want to hear, but what you really feel. What are we doing here that helps you learn? How can I help you learn more? Is what we're doing effective? What could I do? What could we do to change that would help you learn more? All of this is really huge and very, very, very easy to do. Let's see. I was looking for some comments here in the chat. Let's see. Laura talks about stop out in good follow up with that. Coffee break is going on. Thanks, Elizabeth. Students love to talk together, to be sure. Trudy greets students individually. Students check up on each other. Yeah, in many cultures, feeding is huge. Yeah, thank you, Julie, for your comment there. And she's serving healthy snacks. I think I want to attend another class that has some healthy snacks. Okay, let's see here. Leadership decided to do student focus groups. Good. Without the teachers in the room. Yes, yes, yes. We had in the program I worked in at the community college, we had a recruiter who had an awesome relationship with the learners. And many times they would tell him the real reason why they weren't coming to class. And sadly, so many times it was a teacher student conflict, but he could find out and work and get into work out what the problem was. But finding that trusted person that could really tell what was going on made a huge difference. Yeah, if the teacher's not there, the students are going to be more open. That's a great point. That's a great point. Okay, good stuff. Good stuff. Um, I love this quote from Kate Nonsuch, and Kate is a longtime adult educator who works in British Columbia, Canada. And Kate said, "There is no better, ooh, I should say way, but not better was, there is no better way to show respect to a student than to listen. If you listen, learners will teach you how to teach them." And I think that is very, very important. There's so many things pulling at us, but just taking that simple, how you doing is what we're doing, helping you learn. What can we do to help you more? And then really listen can make a huge, huge difference. Thank you, Kate. You had such good wisdom for many years in adult ed. So I know some folks have done this already. I'm going to ask you how you build community in your classrooms and programs. Please, in the chat, if you have yet to do so, what do you do to build community? We've heard some great things already, so I'm sure there's a few other things out there. All right, Carla, celebrating birthdays. Thank you. Becky, celebrating, let's see, promoting mutual respect. Once a year, I spend 15 minutes with each student. Thank you, Starlin. Mutual respect, better attendance, good. School does a lot of potlucks. Yeah, potlucks are awesome. Conversation around the family, daily check-ins, Marissa. Thank you. Yeah, breakout rooms so students can talk more informally. Playing name games. Thank you, Vicky. Good stuff. Good stuff. Good stuff. Okay, well, keep them coming. Keep them coming. If you're still thinking and chatting, I'm going to introduce one other topic briefly, and then I still want us to go into breakout rooms. So I haven't forgotten that. Christine and Matt, be ready. Let's just talk a little bit about instruction, and then we're going to dive into doing a breakout room. So in life, in real life work situations, problem-based learning, so to speak, or solving problems goes on a lot. And just to think about this, let's think about this challenge. Let's think about this problem. You may have been in this situation. You think about how would a child feel about having an MRI scan done? Put a brief word in the chat. If you were a child or had a child and they had to get an MRI done in order to diagnose what was going on with an illness they might be having, how would they feel about it? You see an MRI machine there in the picture. Let's see, what are we getting? So yeah, I'm hearing scared, nervous, terrified, worried, fear. Yes, excuse me, very, very true. And what they found, GE Healthcare did a study on this about how kids were reacting to having MRI scans done. It's a challenge because they have to stay still for several minutes. The machine makes bumping and clanging and well, not clanging, but the machine makes weird noises while the MRI is going on. And they found GE Healthcare when they did this study, excuse me, that 80% of kids had to be sedated. And that creates all kinds of issues. Sedation is always dangerous, especially with kids, and it's more time consuming and other things are happening. So they realized this was a big problem that they wanted to solve. So enter a man named Doug Dietz and his team at GE Healthcare. And they thought they did something called design thinking, where they really analyzed the problem closely. They talked to various stakeholders and they thought, well, what can we do to solve this issue of so many kids needing to be sedated in order to have an MRI scan done? So this is what they came up with. You'll see, instead of this big scary MRI machine, the kids are going on an adventure. And this is an undersea adventure where they're going to go explore and try to find the lost city of Atlantis or whatever. So kids got into this role playing. Or here we've got the pirate ship and we're going on a pirate adventure and we're trying to find the treasure chest. But we have to be very still as we sail our ship because we don't want to give away our position. Or we're going into space and we're taking a trip to Mars, and we have to be very still in the space capsule because it's a long journey to Mars. So, what they found when Doug and his team did this, they went from 80% of kids needing to be sedated to kids telling their parents, Mommy, can we come back and do this again tomorrow? It's amazing. And all because they took the time to analyze the problem and come up with some good solutions that they were able then to implement. It's absolutely amazing. We can replicate this in our own classrooms. This again you see on the screen is a part of the Lincoln Literacy Flyer I was referring to earlier. Adults basically learn to solve problems, and that's what the big motivation is. So they talked here in this about the classes at the church. They're trying to refine skills needed to advocate for their families and careers. And so in their one class, they're trying to find their voice to help their students in school, their kids in school. Intermediate students were preparing for job interviews and to navigate local healthcare. It's all about problem solving in the classroom. So another example, this is from Liz Iglesias's program in New York City. John's class was buzzing from future rangers to aspiring nurses, and we jumped into a project-based or problem-based learning experience together. We planned it side by side, ran it together, learned right along with students. We explored career pathways, tackled real life math behind paychecks, taxes, and wrestled with questions like what makes sense right now? What feels possible next? This is the power of project based learning or problem based learning, real learning rooted in real life. Here's to more classes like John's and more learning that actually matters. One knock I hear against problem based learning or project based learning is that, oh, we can't do a project that takes longer than several class periods. And I hear that. And I hear that and acknowledge that. A solution a solution to that is do a 1 day problem or project that's scaled down a bit so we can finish in 1 day and maybe look for a less elaborate presentation. And that way you don't have to worry too much. If some students might leave early, but at least you don't have to worry about an entirely different set of students the next day or the day after. So that is a possible solution to doing problem-based or project-based learning in the classroom. If you are interested in learning more about that, there's a wonderful curriculum that was put out a few years ago called the Teaching the Skills That Matter in Adult Ed. I don't know if Minnesota participated in one of the cohorts of this or not. I was privileged to be a coach in the last two Teaching Skills That Matter cohorts and really saw some incredible things going on. This is a curricula that's been developed in that focuses on 9 skills that matter, like communication, critical thinking. They're basically soft skills in 5 different topic areas: civics, digital literacy, financial literacy, health literacy, and using problem-based learning, project-based learning, and integrated and contextual learning. So this is a great resource. There's a ton of lessons already planned out, either to use or to give you ideas to jumpstart problems or projects that you could do inside the classroom. But learning that matters is important. And students will a lot of times tell you what they want to learn. And we can use those found lessons, if you will, to build our curricula. Yes, we want to look at our state standards and we can teach all those things and still do things that matter to our learners because all these things involve reading skills, writing skills, math skills, digital literacy skills. So we can do both things at once. So let's do this. Um, okay, I want to go down. Sadly, we don't have time to do everything, but I want to do the breakout. I want to give some reflection time. And please, I know for some people, whenever time they hear breakout room, they think, I gotta leave. Please don't. Please stay around. You don't have to be on camera. That's okay. We'd like to go ahead and set the breakout room, and maybe we could do 7 minutes or, yeah, let's do 7 minutes if that's possible. And what I just ask you to do in the breakout room is react to something or react to something we've talked about or share a good persistent strategy that you do with your learners. That's basically it. React to something you've seen or share a good persistent strategy that you do. Can we go ahead and get those rooms rolling?
Yep, I'm in.
Yeah, had a great discussion in the breakout room that I was in, and thank you to everyone there who shared. Just leave you with one final thought. I know we didn't get to everything that you saw inside the handout, unfortunately. I think people are still rolling back in, so let me pause. Okay, so thank you for your participation in the breakout rooms. I know the room that I was in was amazing. Some really good thoughts that were shared there. I wish we had another hour or so, but sadly we don't. I'll just leave you. There's several other things in the packet, but I'll just highlight one. You'll find on page 7 an interesting sheet. Essential Education, the company did a publication a couple years ago on the 6 anchors of retention. I thought this was really neat. I don't, a lot of times we don't do goal setting well. Our learners don't do goal setting well. And they're either setting a goal that's way too hard in a shorter frame of time or vice versa. But I loved this goal navigation worksheet that Essential Ed came up with, where it talked about setting an immediate goal in a short term and a midpoint and a long term. And looking at time frames for doing it, what would it take to get there? What reward will you give yourself once you've got it, and then a journey journal to write about it along the way, which I thought was really neat. So that's another treasure that you'll find inside the handout. We'll have to do part 2 sometime. If you need to, please invite me back, and we'll do persistence part 2. But at any rate, everybody else is saying like, "Oh, we've had 2 days. We're not ready to think about it. Persistence part 2. We're ready to think about the weekend." But at any rate, thank you so much for being here and attending the last session, and not only attending but being such an enthusiastic part of it. All the great comments in the chat and in the breakout room. Thank you. I do hope our paths will cross again at some future time, and hope that you'll find one or more of these persistence ideas, things that you'll find useful in your classroom or program. But thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Steve. And yes, now that you've kind of presented here for Minnesota for the first time, you're going to be on our list. Thank you so much, everyone.